January 12th, we will call this meeting to order. We were to ask that folks please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance if they are willing and able. The invocation will be given by Rajan Zeed from the Universal Society of Hinduism.
My hearty thanks to Mayor Dr. Brendan Whipple, council members, and City Manager Robert Layton for scheduling me to read Invocation for the great city of Wichita. I shall be reading in Sanskrit from ancient Hindu scriptures, some as old as 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. Om Bhurvavah Swaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamaya Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityur Mamratam Gamaya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara Sakto Hyacharan Karma Parmapanoti Purusha Karma Nevahi Samsiddhi Mastita Jankadya Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampa Shankar Tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nobunaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Navadita Mastu, Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening, may no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti, Samna Hridyaniva, Samnamastuvo Mano, Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts, may your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We thank you again for joining us today. We will move into our printed agenda, Madam Clerk.
Approve the minutes of regular meeting on January 5th, 2021.
Has every member had a chance to review the minutes? Every member has had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, then I will make a motion that we accept the minutes as they are presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast the votes. Result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Selection of Vice Mayor and oath of office.
Before we get to the selection of the next Vice Mayor, I wanted to first thank our current Vice Mayor, Councilmember Claycomb, for her service and her work this past year. It's been great to have someone who I can look towards for advice and guidance as my first year as mayor, and to work with someone who is willing to not only put in the time as the duty of vice mayor, but also put in the time to help personally get me caught up and to work with our other council members to ensure that their priorities make it towards our agenda and towards our shared goals. So with that, I understand I get to hand you a ceremonial keeper. So I'm going to, I'm warning you so you can put your mask on, but if you need to. But then again, you're probably immune.
That's right.
So here you go.
Thank you, Mayor.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
And again, we appreciate all your work, and particularly like I said, someone like me who really leaned on your experience during this past year. Madam Vice Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for those kind words. It was an honor last year to be selected by my colleagues to serve as vice mayor this year, and it's been a privilege to serve in that capacity in representation of my colleagues and for the residents of the city of Wichita. If no one else has any comments, I'm ready to make a motion for next vice mayor, but I will stop there for a minute.
There is no one on the list who wishes to make a comment, and therefore the floor continues to be yours.
Thank you. I would like to move that the next vice mayor be Councilmember Brandon Johnson.
Councilmember Johnson has been nominated to be the next vice mayor. I will second that motion. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? See none. With that, Councilmember Johnson, do you accept the nomination of vice mayor?
I do.
With that, the clerk will open the rolls. Members will vote. With a result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Councilmember Johnson, congratulations. You are the next vice mayor of the city of Wichita. With that, we would ask that you now will have the floor after the oath of office is administered by Judge Jennifer Jones.
Morning. Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Brandon Johnson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties of Vice Mayor
and faithfully discharge the duties of Vice Mayor
for the City of Wichita, Kansas.
for the City of Wichita, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, you have the floor if you'd like to say anything.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank my colleagues for their votes of confidence in being Vice Mayor, and thank our former Vice Mayor, Councilmember Claycomb. I look forward to 2021, working with you all as we work to rebuild our economy. We've still got a lot of challenges ahead, and I know that this team that we have here is capable of meeting those challenges. So thank you for your confidence, and I look forward to helping lead Wichita out of this.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Moving into the public agenda, I guess I just took your thunder from you because I announced it before you did, so I apologize. But public agenda, it looks like we do have one person, Bonnie Biden, who is on the public agenda, Biddle, last name's Biddle. However, I'm double checking. I think that I just got a text message saying that that this person is not there at the time. Isaac over at Century 2, is the speaker currently there?
That's correct. Bonnie's not in attendance at the moment.
Okay, well, we must continue on with the agenda then. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Has every member had a chance to review consent agenda items 1 through 6? And if so, is there any discussion? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I don't want to pull it, but I just want to make a comment. Agenda item, consent agenda item 3. It's for the Cdbg reallocation and extension of the food box program. And just wanted to give an accolade to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas because of their generous seed funding. We were able to start this way back in the spring, and now it's been extended several times, and it's helping seniors in our senior housing program to not only have access to healthy foods, but to also help ensure that they can limit their exposure and limit their outings by going grocery shopping, by having food brought to them. So not only a big thanks to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas for their generous support and willing to partnership, but also to the housing program who helped make this come to fruition and really rolled up their sleeves and found a vendor during a very challenging time when food was still scarce and people were worried about access to healthy foods and access to foods at all. So again, just thanks to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas and our awesome housing department.
Other comments about the consent agenda or items on there? If there are no further comments, I will make the motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor Johnson, Vice Mayor Johnson. So with that, clerk will open the roll, members cast the vote. With the result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated January 11th, 2021.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Hannah Lang, Department of Finance, here to present the January 11th Board of Bids. The first engineering bid we have is Edwards to serve Northgate 4th Edition. Recommendation is Kansas Paving for $201,995. Water distribution system to serve Mallard Estates. Meese Construction for $95,932. Water distribution system to serve Reynolds Edition. Denton Construction and Plumbing for $14,321. Water distribution system Legacy 3rd Edition Phase 4. McCall Excavation for groups 1 and 2 for an aggregate bid total of $82,890. This is our purchasing procurement website, as well as our current open request for proposals. That is the Board of Bids recommendations. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there questions on the item? See none. If there are no questions, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to receive and file the report, approve the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. With no discussion, clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. With the result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Design funding for multiple capital improvement program projects.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members, Paul
Morning.
Gunzelman with Public Works Engineering. This morning, I'm here to present design funding for multiple capital improvement projects. Maybe. The adopted 2021 through 2023 capital improvement program has multiple street and bridge projects that are identified to begin design in 2021. The projects include West Street from I-235 to MacArthur, West Street from MacArthur to 47th Street South, Hamilton Bridge at the Arkansas River. There is a map in front of you. The West Street projects, the 2 West Street projects are on the lower left portion of the map. The 2 West Street projects will consist of a design concept phase that will evaluate the lane configuration, assess the need for bike and/or pedestrian facilities and traffic signals. Both projects will consist of converting West Street to an urban section with underground storm sewer. The Hamilton Bridge project, located in the upper center left, at the Arkansas River, will include a design concept phase that will evaluate the life cycle cost of repairing the bridge and compare it to the life cycle cost of replacing the bridge. Sorry, now the clicker's working. Requested budget for design and project management, West Street, I-235 to MacArthur for $275,000 with construction funding programmed in 2024. West Street, MacArthur to 47th Street South, $400,000, and that has construction funding programmed in 2025. And the Amidon Bridge at Arkansas River for $500,000, and it has construction funding programmed in 2022. The West Street from I-235 to MacArthur does have $4,194,154 in federal funding through WAMPO as well. The recommended action is to approve the budgets, adopt the resolutions, and authorize necessary signatures. And I stand for any questions.
Questions on the item? There's no questions or discussion, and I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the budgets, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. No discussion on the motion. Clerk will open the roll. The result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Amendments to funding agreements, Homeless Case Management Services Program.
Good morning, Ms. Stang.
Good morning,
Director Stang,
Mayor,
excuse me.
members of council. Sally Stang with the Housing and Community Services Department for the record. The item I have for you today are amendments to our funding agreements for our homeless case management services. In July of 2020, felt like yesterday actually, the City Council approved Emergency Solutions Grant funding that we had received through the CARES Act in the amount of $209,361 for homeless case management services. Funds were allocated to 3 agencies for implementation of case management services to assist homeless individuals and families in securing permanent housing. Those 3 funding agreements were to the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas, the Mental Health Association of South Central Kansas, and United Methodist Open Door. We wanted to make sure we had 3 agencies with 3 separate skill sets. In addition to our regular allocation of just over $1.7 million in Community Development Block Grant funding, we received just over $1.9 million in CARES Act funding. And that funding must be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19 in our community. Staff is proposing amending the ESG CARES funding agreements and providing each of the organizations some Cdbg CARES funding. The Cdbg CARES funding component provides the organization the ability to continue to provide case management services to individuals and families that have secured permanent housing through the program. Individuals and families that do secure permanent housing no longer meet HUD's definition of homeless, and therefore we are ineligible to use ESG funds to continue to provide that case management service. So the addition of the Cdbg CARES funds will ensure that those people that have secured housing through this program can continue to receive case management funding services. So we are recommending Cdbg funds in the amount of just over $64,000 to the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas, $52,390 to Mental Health Association, and $44,783 to United Methodist Open Door. These amounts are a little less than the ESG allocation because many of the funds that were provided under ESG included things for application fees and security deposits that aren't necessary after the person has secured housing. So staff recommends extending each of the funding agreements through June 15th, 2022 to ensure continued commitment and eventual expenditure of the ESG CARES funding previously allocated. There's no impact to the general fund, and the Law Department has reviewed and approved the funding agreements as to form. And we're recommending that the City Council approve the amendments to the funding agreements, providing additional Cdbg CARES Act funding and the extension of the contract period through June 15th, 2022, and authorizing the necessary signatures. And I stand for any questions.
Questions on the item? Any discussion? You did a tremendous job, it appears. Thank you so much for all your work on this and for really just everything this past year and starting off this year so well. With that, I will make a motion to accept the staff's recommended action to approve the amendments to the funding agreements providing for the additional CDBG CARES Act funding and extension of the contract periods through June 15th, 2022, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by the Vice Mayor Johnson. With that, members will cast the votes. Motion passes 6-0. Madam Clerk.
Sports Museum for Riverfront Baseball Stadium.
Good morning again.
Welcome and
Mayor,
good morning.
City Council members, Paul Gunsman, Public Works Engineering. The item before you is the Sports Museum for Riverfront Multi-Sport Stadium. On October 23rd, 2018, the City Council approved the city's $83 million investment into the stadium and surrounding infrastructure improvements. $77 million was set aside for the entertainment venue and multi-sport stadium, which included the stadium and surrounding street and infrastructure improvements. On December 11th, 2018, the City Council approved a design-build agreement with J.E. Dunn EB to construct the improvements, which included shelling out the museum space. During the design-build project of the stadium, $600,000 was set aside to complete the programming, design, and construction of the museum space. This amount includes design of exhibit displays and fabrication of the displays. The slide before you shows the museum space within the team office museum building located at 275 South McLean. The space is highlighted in yellow. It does have access from McLean Boulevard as well as access from the inside the stadium itself. On October 5th, 2020, a request for qualifications was published for the design and construction of the museum. 6 teams submitted proposals. A shortlist meeting was held, and the Staff Screening and Selection Committee selected 3 teams to interview. That shortlist meeting was November 10th, and on December 2nd, 2020, the Staff Screening and Selection Committee selected the EB, Schaefer Johnson, Cox Fry, Cambridge 7 team on the basis of project approach, schedule, staff assignment, previous similar projects, and knowledge and expertise. The proposed design-build contract includes $600,000 for the project. Funding is available within the $77 million approved by the City Council on October 23rd, 2018. In 2013, the NBC Foundation was created to operate the annual National Baseball Congress Tournament. Nonprofit assumed ownership of all NBC assets. City loaned NBC Foundation $150,000 for startup operations. To date, $75,000 has been repaid. Memorabilia is needed for the new Sports Museum exhibits. The NBC Foundation is uniquely positioned to obtain exhibit items and to document their history. Under the agreement, the NBC Foundation would develop a collection plan, identify potential donors, acquire memorabilia through donation and long-term loans, prepare documentation and background information for curation of memorabilia. The NBC Foundation outstanding loan balance would be forgiven as follows: 45% with the completion of the collection plan and identification of donors, 45% with collection of memorabilia and preparation of appropriate narratives, and 10% with final acceptance of items and documentation. The NBC Foundation will coordinate collection activities with the museum design team. The recommended action before you is to approve the museum design contract and the agreement for baseball museum acquisitions and authorize the necessary signatures, and I will stand for questions.
Other questions on this item for staff, or is there discussion? If there is no questions or discussion, then I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the contract and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. The result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2021 State Legislative Agenda.
Chair recognizes our Director of Communication, the Honorable Jim Jonas. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Good morning, Council. As the Mayor said, Jim Jonas, I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Wichita. I'm presenting this morning on the proposed 2021 State Legislative Agenda. You have the proposed agenda in your materials. As background, each year the City of Wichita develops a legislative agenda that guides the actions and focus of the city's contract lobbyists in Topeka. This year's agenda identifies key issues and policy areas that the city seeks to address and monitor during the legislative session and throughout 2021. Brighton Carpenter, along with Jenker Savati, represent the city's interests within the Kansas legislature. Marley Carpenter is with us by teams if anyone has any questions for her this morning. So, our legislative priorities, COVID-19 recovery, and the variety of state policies for economic recovery that it could bring with that. Health and safety, with a particular interest in mental health facilities and services. Transportation, including passenger rail for Wichita, a remote sellers tax, and Star Bonds renewal. Staff recommends that Council approve the 2021 state legislative agenda so we can, as the legislature is getting ready to go in, we can start paying attention to these issues. And I'll stand for any questions.
There are questions on the item. Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. Jim, normally we have a legislative agenda workshop so the public can have an opportunity to see the full scope of our platform or our agenda. We did not do that this year, so this is the first opportunity for the public to see these items. And you're asking us to adopt it today. Has this been included in our agenda packet for the public to see that's online and they can weigh in?
It is.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned that we're taking this step without having the full transparency of our platform.
Well, as you know, we did not have a formal workshop on the agenda this year, but there were individual meetings with...
As council members, yes, but not with the public.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just concerned there's some language in here that has surfaced for the first time, and it's not in our previous legislative agenda packets.
Well, as you know, most of the issue areas and policy focus that we try to look forward to in the next legislature, they're big bucket items. They're not specific pieces of legislation. So it gives us the flexibility to be able to hone in as necessary on those key issues when they arise.
Yeah, some of these big budget items are big budget items. I'm sorry, I didn't say that right. Big bucket items are very broad and can be interpreted to take a position that we've not taken before.
Well, certainly wouldn't want to say that we are proposing any specific legislation, but that it is important that we pay attention to macro issues as they present themselves in the legislature.
Right, but when I see language that says support, that lends to believe that we're doing more than just monitoring.
Well, we say that in a number of places, like supporting local police departments, which would certainly fall under that support clause that you know.
Mayor.
Of course. Mr. Manager.
I think in the interest of better information and the transparency issue that Councilmember Frye is talking about, we can push this back 1 week. If that'll give you a little more time to get comfortable with the document, since it is your adopted legislative policy and it does guide our legislative team, if we just push this back, if you want to continue it until the meeting of the, the 19th, that would be great.
We have a few members on the board. We could let them speak to it, and then if there's a motion at table, of course. I do want to point out, or at least ask the question, when this was presented publicly at our Zoom / South Central delegation, I think that was a week ago, and I believe that was public. So I do want to point out that, although, and I don't control workshops or when they were scheduled, I'm not sure why staff wasn't interested in a workshop this time around, but this, I believe, has been discussed publicly. Councilmember Fry, you still have the floor.
That was not our forum. That was the South Central Kansas Legislative Agenda Forum. So would the public know that we were presenting ours at that and have the opportunity to weigh in? I'm uncertain of that. They had that opportunity or even aware of it. So I understand what you're saying. I just think that the manager's idea of pushing this back a week, especially since we didn't have a legislative workshop, is certainly merited.
Understood.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of echo Councilmember Fry's thoughts. You know, typically we would present this before the end of the year. We'd have a workshop. We'd have the public see it before we had our meeting with the South Central delegation. And now it seems like we've had the meeting with the delegation, and then we'll put in your packets what the agenda is, and then you're going to vote on it. I don't understand what staff changed here.
I think it was a matter of just timing. We didn't have a December workshop and wasn't ready for the November workshop. And so in hindsight, we probably should have just attached it to the back end of a regular meeting so that you would have that as a workshop item. When it was presented to the delegation, it was more the broad buckets. I don't know that we've advocated necessarily for each of these positions. And I think once the council adopts this document, then that's when our lobbying team will go forward in terms of indicating what the council's policies are.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. If we do decide to push this back a week, is there an opportunity to get feedback via social media? Just a post, maybe not a full-out social media town hall, because it takes a lot to coordinate that, but just to post with these and see what folks think, and then just be clear about this is just a feedback tool. So just so folks know that. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Other discussions on this? I could really care less if we wait a week or move forward with this. I will say that this has been floating around. It was developed by the Vice Mayor and me. And it's been public for over a week, and not one person has shot me an email or came in my office and wanted to discuss it. If we extend it another week so we can further that discussion, are we doing it purposefully, or is it just, maybe it's justifiable if it's just to ensure that the public has a view of it, or a more thorough view, I guess, online, than just having the public forum that was on Zoom. So I guess we can go either way with it, but if someone wants to make the motion, I really, doesn't matter to me either way. So with that, I see Councilmember Fry has jumped on the board. Maybe he will make the motion to table for a week. Councilmember Fry.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. I make a motion that we delay this agenda item for at least 1 week to allow the public to weigh in via whatever means necessary.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With the result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Thank you, Jim. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Department of Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
Hello
Welcome back.
again, Mr. Mayor,
Director
members of
Stang.
council. Again, Sally Stang for the record from the Housing and Community Services Department. I have for you today the new Department of Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, informally known as the Coronabus, included $25 billion in emergency rental assistance to be administered by the Department of Treasury. So this is really new for us. We've never administered rent assistance from Treasury. The legislation provided a minimum of $200 million per state based on population, and that 45% of a state's allocation may be accessed by local governments with a population above 200,000 by submission of an application and certification that's due today. By formula, the city of Wichita could expect to receive just over $12 million, and it actually could end up being more. We only have 3 local jurisdictions in the state with a population over 200,000, Johnson County, Sedgwick County, and the city of Wichita. So they have not made available the direct allocation amounts, but based on the formula calculation, we're looking at least $12 million. 90% of the funds received must be used for rent and utility payments directly to providers for eligible households, and 10% of the funds may be used for administration and housing stability services. The funds are available through December 31st, 2021. However, the Department of Treasury will recapture any funds not obligated by September 30th, 2021, to be redistributed to local jurisdictions that are fully utilizing their funds. In order to be eligible, a household has to be at risk of homelessness or housing unstable, so having received a late rent notice or an eviction notice. They have to have a direct or indirect financial impact related to COVID-19. So this could be obviously losing a job, having hours cut, reduced tips, but also increased expenses related to needing to hire additional childcare while kids are remote learning, additional medical expenses related to COVID-19. Also, their annual income must be less than 80% of the area median income, but we have to provide a preference for households making less than 50% of the area median income, or those who have been unemployed for the full 90 days prior to application. And I've provided a table of the income limits based on the number of persons in the family. The program can provide 12 months of assistance for rent and utility arrears, plus prospective rent and utilities with eligibility recertification every 90 days. So for any individual family, if we're paying 3 months of arrears, we may be able to pay up to 9 months going forward. And then there's this additional ability to possibly go all the way to 15 months if funding remains and the payments are necessary to keep the family stable. Landlords and owners may apply on behalf of their tenants, but the tenant has to co-sign the application, the landlord has to provide the documentation to the tenant, and the payments have to be used to satisfy the tenant's rental obligation to the owner. The funding is exempt of any match requirement, and so there'll be no impact on the general fund. The law department has reviewed and approved the certification and funding application as to form. And so it is recommended that the City Council approve the certification and funding application to the Department of Treasury for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program and authorize the necessary signatures. And I stand for any questions. And I know there'll be a ton. This is coming really fast. Even the Department of Treasury doesn't have all of the answers yet. So.
May I just for a second,
Yes,
there's one thing I'd like Sally to explain. Sally, could you talk about what we may do with some of the administrative funds in terms of intervention with the judicial system?
Sure. So I've made an inquiry with Sedgwick County to try and actually place a caseworker within the court so that we can try and intercept either landlords coming in to file or families responding to eviction orders. We're also having conversations with United Way, Workforce Alliance, and other community partners on how we can get out and get in front of families who qualify for this program. And I also did want to clarify too that utility assistance does include water and sewer, which was something some were unsure about. But absolutely, even when it is city-owned, we just need to have the documentation and the files to support it.
Which is a pretty big deal considering we had a no shut-off policy during the the height of the COVID crisis, so folks who might be behind, this might be a way to help them.
We have a meeting scheduled with Public Works on Thursday to kind of strategize how to get this information out to those who are in arrears.
That's amazing. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Sally, just two questions. The first, this sounds similar to the program we had last year. I forget all the acronym, but
The
is it
EAP
basically-
program?
Yeah.
It is similar. EAP, we were only able to go backwards, and we had a $1,000 threshold. With this, there is no dollar threshold, and we can do 12 months. So we can take care of the full arrears back to March, and then be able to continue to move forward, both rent and utilities. So it is a little bit different. I think it's going to have a substantial impact for families. My discussions with Workforce Alliance, they've had this focus on trying to retrain folks who have lost their jobs related to COVID-19, and much of their pushback is people can't afford not to have their rent paid while they're being trained. So we see this as a great alignment on how we can do both things at the same time, get people through training and know that they'll be housing secure.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is great, and probably the Debbie Downer here, but so is there any policies or something that can protect those who are renting? And I say that because of recent events in District 1. I've heard from more people, and I've heard from two individuals who, through the last program, had their rent paid. They were behind, I think, 4 months. They got it paid up, and then they got kicked out.
Anyway.
And is there any protection for someone who might need help with their rent? Maybe they don't get along with their landlord, but they get it paid, and the landlord tries to kick them out. Is there any protection for them with this?
The fact that we'll be able to pay some prospective rent should protect them for the eviction related to rent. Now, if it's an eviction for other violations of the lease, obviously, there are other reasons why landlords evict folks. But we can definitely, through the casework, and make sure that people who are having issues with their landlords get connected with Kansas Legal Aid to try and make sure that there are no abuses going on there.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have and I know that you mentioned that this is fast and that we will likely be, I guess, fill out the details as we find need to, and I have no doubt that your department can handle that. $12 million is a lot. That's going to be a huge, create some economic activity of $12 million of federal money getting pumped into our city. Are we confident we can allocate and utilize that level? Are we creating the social networks, the networks with our nonprofit community and outreach?
That is our hope. I mean, definitely, there's going to be a significant investment per family, much greater than any program we've put out, whether it was through ESG, CSBG, or Cdbg. So it is a matter, though, of making sure that we can get in front of the people who don't know that this exists. So it's going to take some very comprehensive outreach so that families that do qualify can apply. Our biggest challenge through the other programs has been to be able to verify a financial impact related to COVID-19. Very, very challenging. But we have some additional flexibilities in that it's not necessarily have to lose your job or be able to document the reduced hours. It can be reduced tips. It can be other things. We just need to be able to substantiate it and have the documentation necessary. It is expected that the full funding is to be deposited into our bank account on January 26th. This is not a draw program where as we spend it, we draw it. They are supposed to be hitting our accounts January 26th, and we want to make sure we have an application up and ready to go as soon as we have the funding available. So we are working with our nonprofit providers on how to get the word out. And not only just how to get the word out, my conversation with United Way was, while we have these funds, this should be the priority funding mechanism. Let's leave the ESG alone. Let's leave the CSBG, maybe focus CSBG more on the child care subsidies and workforce training, because this is the source of funds that expires the soonest. It's the biggest source of funds. And if we do expend it, there's a chance we could get more. So that has been our discussion with our partners in the community, is this should be the first priority funding source for this.
Well, I'd love to work with your office and also with our communications office to find ways that we can reach more people who might qualify for this and might not know it.
Right.
I think that COVID has created situations where people find themselves in an economic crisis that they haven't before and are just unaware of what's available. That also mirrored with the fact that we have more programs and more resources than we have in the past, so it's very logical to not be familiar with brand new programs. So I think we can work together and hopefully be able to get the word out. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Last thing, Sally, I've been told there is a Landlord Association here in Wichita. Are we working with them with this?
We do. The Apartment Association of Greater Wichita. I reach out to them anytime I need anything going out to massive amounts of landlords at once to try and get the information out, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. If there's no further discussion or questions, then I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the certification and funding application with the United States Department of Treasury for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. With a result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Aviation Fuel Storage and Distribution Facility Rehabilitation Project Courier, Supplemental Agreement Number 4 and Amendment Number 2.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning. John Oswald, Airport Engineering and Planning Manager. Today I will present the Eisenhower Airport Bulk Fuel Facility Rehabilitation Project. Fuel Farm was built in 1954 when the new municipal airport was undergoing construction. The original 8 underground fuel tanks, all 25,000 gallons each, have served the airport since then and will remain in service. The facility must continue to operate while undergoing major renovations, thus careful phasing is important. The underground tanks need refurbished and associated equipment need refurbished or replaced. The demand for F-gas fuel has decreased, and there is a need for more Jet A fuel storage, therefore, to rest to changing conditions. The 2 F-gas tanks need converted to store Jet A fuel. Converting the 2 F-gas tanks avoids constructing 2 new tanks in an area that does not have the space. Project is unfolding over phases. This time last year, we finished the phase 1 project was a cathodic protection system. Phase 2 project is in front of us now. We'll refurbish 3 of the underground tanks and associated equipment. Then the work is ready to start. Phase 2B is expected refurbished in phases. The remaining 5 underground tanks replace a control building, replace control system, and renovate the refueler truck loading racks. And the work is planned to start first half of 2021. Construction manager at risk CMAR process we're using that due to the complexity of the project and the benefit of having a construction contractor provide feedback during the design. The CMAR has provided valuable feedback during the phase 2A project, and the CMAR is also reviewing, as well as staff, the phase 2B design and providing feedback. To follow up on what the manager mentioned at agenda review on Friday, the CMAR has advertised locally in 2 plan rooms, advertised via the building connected webpage, has used the City of Wichita's EB list and made contact through that list, developed a project-specific information webpage, and during construction, the contractor is committed to hiring local labor when possible. Covering the highlights of this, the consultant timeline, Courier & Company was a consultant selected in the fall of 2018. First contract with them was a study contract, which gave us priorities and pricing. The SA number 4 is presented to you today. for a contract amount of $108,995 for construction phase services and some miscellaneous design activities. Contractor timeline, Kier Civil was the construction contractor selected by the Staff Screening Selection Committee to provide the CMAR selection, construction delivery process. Mid-year, that interview occurred and Kier was selected unanimous by the Staff Screening Selection Committee. The initial contract and Amendment 1 was approved by the City Manager's Office early this year, and Amendment 2 is presented to you today in a not-to-exceed amount of $1,577,393. Concurrent with the consultant first contract in mid-November 2018, initiated a budget for the project of $300,000. Adjustment 1 was to cover the Phase 1, which is a cathodic protection component. Adjustment 2 is to cover the design services for the consultant. And Adjustment 3 is presented today for $1,850,000 for the Phase 2A construction project. Recommend action is to increase the budget. The Career Consultant Supplemental Agreement number 4, the Kier selection as the CMAR, the Kier Construction Amendment number 2, and authorize the necessary signatures. I'm available for questions.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. John, during your presentation, you referred on one of the slides earlier that the CMAR would hiring local labor when possible.
Correct.
But then in our green sheet, it says approximately 26% of the work in this phase will be subcontracted by Kier to local areas. So are we putting a number on more than just when possible?
Two answers. The 26% is a math calculation. The comment I made on my slide are the tasks the contractor has that, as an example, he's not going to bring in out-of-state welders. He'll find welders local. He'll find somebody to certify the welders locally. So he'll find labor within those subtasks. So that component of labor there is not included in the percentage I mentioned.
Okay, so where is that percentage? Where do we see that?
The labor he's going to hire, I don't have that. I don't think he knows that yet. This project will unfold over the next 6 months. So he has yet to probably identify those particular individuals.
Okay, I just remember when this came to us earlier this year, that was one of the concerns, is that whether or not we were going to be using local firms for a local project. And so hopefully this addresses some of that concern that we heard.
I believe it does. Mid-year, when I was here standing and talking to you, the council and perhaps you had indicated local labor involved. And with that in mind, we adjusted the solicitation projects to make sure we focused on that. The winning contractor, in his proposal, did a very detailed layout of how he proposed to execute that. In his interview, he got into that quite extensively, and he's followed through with a pretty extensive list of contacts. There are some tasks that just aren't available locally, so to speak. It's a pretty specialized project. But he has, by all indications, he's indicated he's tried and obtained as much as he can. The sub-trade bids, it's a low bid process with respect to responsibility and responsible bidders. So if a local subcontractor bid but wasn't selected, then he chose the low bidder that was responsible and responsive.
And if I read this right, it was a unanimous selection?
That is correct.
By the staff screening?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions on the item? See none. With that, I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the budget increase, the supplemental agreement, the construction amendment, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. The result of 6 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
All right, start off with appointments. I guess comments. Councilmember Tuttle.
I don't have an appointment, but I do have a comment. Thank you. I was honored to be asked to join the Wichita Children's Home Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition, and we had our first meeting yesterday. It brings together groups of community partners who are already indeed working on this issue, and then also some new opportunities through some federal funding that they received. But yesterday they mentioned that January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and actually yesterday was National Human Trafficking Awareness Day on January 11th of 2021. So just wanted to take an opportunity to pause and remind the community that of course our Wichita Police and many entities are involved in this, but human trafficking is a very real issue in our community, especially because of where we're located geographically in the nation and because of our highway system. It really poses a true threat for our community. So please just take a moment, if you don't know anything about human trafficking, maybe just do a quick Google search and try and learn some more so that you can identify the signs and symptoms when you see it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. So I've never actually said this for this position, but I was told I needed to mention it publicly. So Bryce Graham won the vote for the low-income Northeast position on the Cdbg board, and I was supposed to acknowledge that publicly so that he could get his paperwork. So there we have it. Congratulations, Bryce.
Congratulations, Bryce. Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you. I just want to, we had a couple of items today that are CARES Act funding through our Housing and Community Services, and I wanted to just report back to the council and the public that the 316 project that we approved with that funding a few weeks ago opened last night as a women's shelter, and this is a 24-hour, 7 days a week women's shelter, and it will be temporary for the next 6 months and be used as that temporary women's shelter during the winter while it's undergoing rehabilitation to have 56 permanent supporting housing units. So I just want to recognize again the work of Director Stang. Sally's been really good and brought together partners to make this happen. But I also think it just shows, while we are in a situation with this pandemic, some of the opportunities that we've been able to take advantage of. And again, we had, I think, 2 items today that are the CARES Act funding, and then this pretty large project, the 316 project, to help our people experiencing homelessness in the community.
Other comments? With that, I would ask staff, I'd be interested in somewhat of analysis of what is a new item on our legislative agenda versus what is a carryover item from last year. My understanding is that a lot of our agenda mirrors what was presented last year, so I'd like to know what exactly, because I wasn't here when we had the workshop discussion last year, so I'd like to know the difference there. Any other further comments? If none, then I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. The clerk will open the roll. Council cast the votes. Result of 6 yeas to 0 nays. The motion does pass. We are adjourned.